Kylee, it's Dr. Scott. Has some feedback for you on your visual analysis draft. Just as a quick reminder, what I'm looking for in this assignment is a thesis statement that's clear and that's focused, that it has strong supporting reasons. And an assignment of this length, those supporting reasons are your body paragraphs. Are those body paragraphs doing a good job of supporting the argument that you have? Also looking for supporting details from the murals and from the readings, and from the documentary as well. Are you using those details to support your paper's overall argument? And also, are you explaining how those details support the overall argument? Also looking for organization and transitions. Do you have a good reason why you're beginning with one paragraph and then going on to another? Are you using transitions between paragraphs and between important ideas within your paragraphs? Also looking for integration of a couple paraphrases, and then MLA format, integration of a visual, and a paragraph without the verbs. Oops. There we go. So I thought this was your thesis statement here between these two sentences. I think for an assignment of this length, it's not a very long paper. I think having a two-sentence thesis statement gets a little confusing, and it's hard to kind of understand what the focus is. But for what I read, the focus was hope. And how did the murals get across hope? Color, realism, and placement. And I think that's fine. That's a good basic, I think that's something you can definitely build an argument out of. I was kind of confused about the citizens wanted out of the project. I'm not sure if that is something that you need in a thesis statement, but I do think that idea of hope, okay, that makes sense. I kind of follow you there. Where I think, I saw your note at the end where you're talking about different things that you might write about. I think there's things that you're doing here in the paper that you can build upon, and then there's other things that I think you might consider cutting. And then, like the things that you need to build upon, it's generally explaining how details that you're including in your paper, how they connect to the overall argument. So how do some of these things that you're writing about, how do they bring about this idea of hope that you've mentioned? And I think you did a pretty decent job in the first body paragraph in kind of connecting your details to hope. So the flood of Alexandria, I thought you did a solid job of kind of saying, with the use of colors, that there's light and dark, and the light is, you're connecting that to hope, and the dark is like, this is why we're looking for hope, because we have this really negative thing that's there. I think you did a solid job there. Where it got a little bit dodgy with me, or where I really couldn't kind of follow, were in some of the later paragraphs. So like here, the Chillicothe Street mural, the idea of hope was kind of, I had a hard time seeing that, particularly here at the end of that, at the end of that body paragraph. You're bringing your paraphrase into it, and I think that is fine. I just had I don't see it as much in the way of detail and explaining how that detail relates to hope as I did in the previous paragraph. I also think it's not nearly as effective to have one paragraph about one mural and then the other paragraph about the other mural. I think there's actually something kind of interesting in the contrast, particularly between the two murals that you have. They're very different from each other, and so to say that they both have hope, it's kind of interesting that two murals that are so different are conveying the same kind of emotion, and you're kind of keeping them separated here in this paragraph, and they really do belong together. You're doing a much better job here talking about hope and making a strong argument about how hope works in the Alexandria mural, and not nearly as effective with the Chillicothe Street mural. This little paragraph, I wasn't sure what you were doing there. Maybe you're just trying something out, and that is totally fine for a draft. I don't think I understood what you meant by transfers over. I think you might be just kind of working something out there. I'd be interested to hear a little bit more about that, but I'm not exactly sure where you were going with that. I don't know if that's an idea that's got legs or something that you might just kind of need to cut. The realism paragraph is pretty interesting to me. There's issues with it. Like, it took like it's taken a long while for you to kind of get to the point where you're talking about hope, and it seems like we're reading a lot about realism, and there's not much of a connection to the idea of hope. And it felt like this is the paragraph that had maybe the weakest connection to the paper's overall argument. But I do think that there's something kind of interesting with how realism changes between the two murals. You have Alexandria, where it's like it's realism in the sense that they're depicting something from history, and they're trying, they're not making it cartoonish or anything like that. It's like, try to imagine this is what it would look like if there was a flood that was coming in. Whereas the Chillicothe Street mural, it's realism to a degree that the people look realistic, but because of that perspective change where you're made to believe that you could walk into it, that's not necessarily realism. It's a total change in perspective. So I think that was kind of interesting, and I don't know if that's something to write about, or I'm not sure how that plays into your argument. But I guess the overall thing that I'm getting at with that paragraph is like it's hard for me to understand how that's a paragraph about hope. And it seems like you're doing a better job at the end of the paragraph saying, about rejuvenation and about joy. And I'm wondering if maybe you just need to begin the paragraph with that. But and I'm not sure how the Flood of Alexandria mural kind of plays into that. So the realism paragraph for me, that was like the big question mark. Like, I'm not sure how this fits with the paper's overall argument. But I'm also, at the same time, kind of intrigued by that kind of conversation about how realism is working in the two murals. So I don't know if this is something to cut, or if you have a way to kind of clarify what you're thinking in terms of how the mural is getting across that idea of hope through the use of realism. So I saw that you also kind of want to write about facial expressions. I think that there's definitely work that you can do with that. It's a little bit tougher with the two murals that you chose because there's more emphasis on the scenery and less emphasis on the people that are in the mural. So that might be a little difficult. Maybe actions might be something you consider writing about. The very last paragraph, I think that felt like kind of a weaker argument, like a weaker claim that you're making within your paper. I think this could be a way that you conclude the essay, to be honest with you, though. Just kind of saying, because remember, they're not arranged purposefully necessarily. They're arranged chronologically, but there's not necessarily, Dafford didn't say, I'm going to put Alexandria first because I want to show all the messed up things that happened, and then I'll do the 40s mural later because that means the times are better. It's all set up kind of chronologically. But I do think that, the murals, I would definitely agree with you, the murals do end. We have more positive messages at the end of the murals than we do at the beginning. So maybe kind of talking about how the murals are meant to, the murals themselves and just the way that they're arranged, they're meant to kind of instill that idea of hope. And I'd be fine even if you're doing it in conclusion, you talk about some of the other murals that are kind of coming at the end. It's not just like Chillicothe Street, but towards the end we have patriotism. We have this beautiful image of Portsmouth from Kentucky. So I think that this could work for a conclusion. It felt like one of the weaker arguments, though, that you were making. All right, that's a lot, and this video is already way too long. To kind of summarize, let's see, did I write you a little note at the end? I did not. But if I can quickly summarize, I think rethinking the argument just a little bit, is hope what you're... If hope is really what you want to write about, that's totally fine. I think you can write a decent argument about that. I didn't always feel like your body paragraphs were doing a great job of supporting that. So maybe tweaking the argument, or maybe within the body paragraphs doing a better job of kind of connecting them to that idea of hope. I think that there are some ideas that work better than others. The placement of the murals, that's kind of meh. The colors definitely work. It works definitely with the Alexandria mural. You do a good job there. Less effective job with the Chillicothe Street mural. And then there's the realism idea. what to do with that. So there's decisions to make, there's thinking to do with the paper's overall argument. If you got questions, let me know. We'll have time in class this upcoming week to chat about it and to work on our essays, so make sure you bring your questions. All right, that's it for now.